Hello everyone. I had some technical issues filming the subject I had intended to show you this week. So instead, we're going to talk about shoes, specifically footwear for Tango on the cheap. So let's start with our practice shoes, okay? And our practice footwear, I should say, because one of the things I do recommend, especially if you're working at home, is just these, a pair of socks. And don't laugh, because in one of the studios I taught, one of the rules were you weren't allowed shoes, and so we had to tango in our socks. And I found out that it actually had a lot of benefits. It allowed the slipperiness we needed to do ochos and turns and things like that. It also made your feet more comfortable. It made more contact on the floor, which was good for the students. They had more balance. And also, well, it was cheap also. And the last thing was that people were fearless. They weren't afraid of having to step on someone's toes because they didn't have like a hard sole on or anything. But they were able to walk normally and naturally, and we actually progressed pretty well in that class. What you can also do with your sock is put it on a tennis shoe. Like this. This is a common solution for people. I think they picked it up from the swing dancers. But the big thing in Tango is that you need to be able to pivot. And all you really need is this ball of the foot here to be able to pivot. Because once your heel is up a little bit, then you can pivot. Okay? This is one common solution. Another solution that people have done is to take an old pair of tennis shoes, and they will take an old handbag or old leather jacket. You can get that really cheap from Goodwill. They'll cut out some leather and will rubber cement it onto the bottom of the sole. So that's also a nice cheap solution. What's the difference between leather or suede? Well, suede you'll pretty much get in dance shoes, in regular dance shoes, but it has to do with the floor. Suede is a little bit more grippy than leather, so if you have a slippery dance floor, then the suede works better than the leather. You don't slip as much. If you do find yourself in that situation, what some people have done, this works pretty well, is if they only have the leather soles, they'll wet the bottom of the leather soles so that they're a little bit more grippy. Okay, so that's a solution if you find a dance floor that is too slippery. Usually it's the opposite. I should mention, I used to have a pair of dance sneakers. One thing to be aware of that I found, and I'll use these tennis shoes as an example because they're very similar. On the practice shoes, which are made of like the real Tango practice shoes, made of the hard plastic, they also still had this rubber on the outside, okay, or like hard plastic on the outside. And what I discovered is that this made it a little bit more difficult for me to like just slide by my foot. And so what ended up happening, and this may happen if you dance with your dance sneakers or regular sneakers that you convert, is that my feet would come apart like this. I mean, I would open my feet a little bit so that I can do my practice moves. However, when it came to regular dancing, that carried through. So you want to be aware that your practice shoes tend to be a little bit thicker on the sides. That may cause your feet to open more than it should when you're dancing at a milonga. Okay. Some people use karate shoes. I, by the way, you see me wear this all the time, jazz shoes. There's not much in the way of support here, but they're really good for, well, everything I need to do, okay? And actually, over the years, what I found is it actually made my foot stronger because I had to work those muscles. Let's talk about dress your shoes. Not everyone has $100, $200 to pay for a good pair of real Tango shoes, okay? Especially if you're beginning. I wouldn't expect you to spend that kind of money yet for a hobby you may decide you may not even like. So the big things to look for is making sure that you can pivot on the dance floor. So that means either leather soles or a hard plastic sole. And if you really want to go cheap, you can start looking at your regular shoes that you might find at, you know, Marshalls or TJ Maxx or, you know, something like that. And there are some things that you want to look for. Okay, let's start with the men. So this is actually a pair of Sean's expensive shoes, but I wanted you to notice this rim around here. Okay, now if you look at his Dan shoes though, you don't see that rim. Right? And if I turn them from behind, you can actually see more of the leather, of the upper leather, compared to the sole. So guys, when you're looking for shoes on the cheap, that's one of the things you want to look for. Not only just the sole, but also how much of this edge is here. Okay, so ladies, well, let's see. You have a lot more options than the guys. The guys, you only need, you know, black shoes or brown shoes. For the ladies, a real Tango shoe looks something like this. You'll notice that the heel goes right underneath. Oh, the heel goes right underneath here. There's that, and that's really one of the big things you want to look for, because in a regular street shoes, the heel may come over on this side straight down, and that's not going to be supportive. You want it to go underneath. If you imagine my heel of my foot in here, the heel of my foot here, and you want that weight to go straight down from there, not over on this side. Okay, so that's one of the big things you want to look for. You also have a lot of options regarding your toe. You can have like a toes close, or like an open, completely open toe, or a, where is it at? Over a peep toe. And this is an actual pair of street shoes that I bought. This is by Franco Sarto. Really nice. Leather bottom. And you can notice the heel comes in or like that, so my foot is completely supported. Okay. And I have enough room here. Now the shape of whether you want a peep toe versus an open toe really just has to do with comfort level and how your foot is shaped. Okay. There is one thing I do want to point out to you though, and that is this is, as I said before, is an actual street shoe that I bought. This is one of my Como Faux. And if I put the two side by side like this, okay, you may notice that the street shoe, the toe of the street shoe comes down longer than my Como Faux, my fancy Tango shoes. And what that means, you notice that this is a little bit more rounded than this. Okay, so my toes feel more of this than they do here. So when I'm wearing those shoes, there's just a little bit here that I can't quite touch onto the floor. But they're handy to have, because if I'm dancing on a rough surface like a pavement or something like that, because sometimes you have these outdoor malongas, and then they come in handy. It's a lot less painful for me to sacrifice a $30 shoe than a, you know, $200 shoe. That is it for trying to figure out how to get your dance shoes on the cheap. Thank you very much, and enjoy the malongas.